Good afternoon. Like I've been introduced, I come from Postbank, Uganda. I hope you can hear me. And I'm here. First of all, I appreciate the invitation given to me to come and share this story. Postbank Uganda is a This morning, we were listening to panelists and very exciting presentations about the remittance space, something to do with mobile money and all the other aspects. At one point, it was interesting, the debate about cash versus digital money. But for me, seated there, I knew I would come up here and try to also share another angle to it, that cash is still relevant in this space of remittances. Because when you talk of inclusion, especially in Africa, we still have the missing link. Remembering that when you look at the remittance flows into Africa, a big part of that money is somehow lost in that the recipients that receive money from migrants, many of them, due to financial literacy, some of this money is not put to good use. Therefore, we as players lose it out, because if it is all channeled in productive sectors, then it would remain in the ecosystem and keep helping the general economy to grow. So the project I'm going to share about tries to put an answer to this, that inclusion cannot be complete without promoting savings, because most of our people are poor. When they receive these monies, because of lack of, not that they don't know what to do, but when you receive money from your relative abroad, and you don't have a plan for it, it eventually gets lost. And that is what this project brings on the table as an answer, that there is everything to do with financial inclusion emanating from remittance, the remittance space. But before I do this, I just wanted you to understand what is really Postbank Uganda, because the topic is talking about post office, but here we are also hearing about Postbank. All of us are familiar with the post offices, that many years ago, post offices had the section called Post Office Savings Bank Department. Now, Uganda was not spared when the liberalization of the world economy was happening. So the post office was restructured into the separate companies, with the savings department becoming an independent company, while the post office still existed, then the telecom going their way as well. So Postbank came into being at that point as a separate company. But today we find ourselves having to look back into the synergies. What can these two do together? And we find that one of the areas is remittances. So Postbank in Uganda, this slide was just showing us what is the structure of the standing of the economy. Now, Postbank was, of course, incorporated, like I said, way back in 1997. And I've already shared about that slide. And today, it is regulated by the central bank. Now, that slide shows it's not strange to all of us how we have moved up to the point today when we are in the digital space. That one simply shows the market Postbank serves, but I won't go into details. Now, Postbank has several channels in which it reaches the market. And this is of interest to remittances, because when funds are remitted from abroad, the end person you are targeting is that person who is going to receive the funds. Deep down in rural Africa, there are places where you cannot even put a bank. So what do? Innovation takes place, and in Uganda we have what we call mobile banking vehicles, which are networked. It's a bank on wheels going to serve people in a place you cannot even dream of putting a bank. Remember, when this money is received, the end person, deep in Uganda we have some places like northeastern, a place called Karamoja, which is semi-arid. But yet there are people there, there is money there, there is business there, but the problem is, how viable is it for you to invest? So these funds come in handy to go and serve such people. You also have people deployed, like Post Bank is the one who's serving the armed forces mostly. These people are deployed. Now where they are, they cannot keep ferrying them back to urban centers to receive money. So you find that you had to innovate to find a solution to reach them, which of course big banks cannot do. So Post Bank, being a government public company, it has a double mandate of also a social mandate of reaching people, spreading financial inclusion. Sorry, hope I'm not switching off. Uganda's remittance situation. We know that Uganda is one of that area of remittances has been one of the fastest growing because of the migrant population going to work abroad. According to the World Bank, growing sharply from 232,000 in 1999 to $1.2 billion in 1999. I mean in 2017. Now the question is, when you look for this money, you don't see where it ends up. That's why IFAD came in as a development partner, and they invited proposals. So we sat together with the post office and wrote a proposal to IFAD. And fortunately, this proposal was one of the few winning proposals. We were considered to take on this project, whereby, unique as it looks, two separate companies with perhaps not similar visions having to work together for a common purpose. So today, we have a project which is really succeeding in that we want to tap those people who are receiving money, and yet they are totally unbanked. As I speak, the numbers are picking up, that the people who are receiving funds, rather than just going to spend in an unplanned manner, they are turned back to open savings accounts. And as they save this money, they are able to plan for it. And it encourages even the person working abroad, the migrant, to continue saving more, because when they come home, they lead a better life. So you see, in a way, you are succeeding in upscaling remittances into the financial inclusion space. And that's why you may find that you can never take it away from the bank, away from remittances, and vice versa. Even in mobile money, right now, we have just signed an agreement, a contract with the various companies, including TransFast, to see how do we move funds from bank to bank, and also from bank to mobile wallets. And in Uganda, where mobile money has taken effect, it's very possible via technology to spend my money from mobile wallet to bank account and vice versa. That savings are now possible because I know I'm relaxed about it. When I receive my money, it stays in my account, then I can move it to my mobile wallet. Then I start purchasing goods and services with it. Actually, as we speak, school fees has taken. No longer, schools are now using what we call school pay. You simply, the head teacher will be at home, the school bursar, but they receive money they see the money being paid even at midnight. You see, banking space has evolved. So we as players in the remittance space, I think this is a model that needs to be replicated across. Now, the questions here, of course, which I raised earlier was, how much of these remittances end up in the productive economic space? How many of the beneficiaries constitute part of the included population? And how do we upscale? And that is why the solution which I shared earlier comes into being. Because when you look at the state of financial inclusion in Uganda, of course, numbers sometimes are deceptive. They'll tell you that it looks rosy because of mobile money. But again, when you look critically at it, you find that adults using groups to save were found to be 43% of the population. People saving with mobile money platforms, 23%. People currently saving at home in their houses, 27%. Only 11% were those saving with regulated institutions. The question here is that all financial institutions are only competing for 11% of the bankable population. Yet, the potential is much higher than that. So we came in and said, what can we do? Let us find a way of completing the puzzle in the ecosystem so that this money, once you get a loop of it and stays in the account, in the banking space, then it will be more helpful. Now here we also saw that 58% of all adults were currently using formal institutions. Up to 20% of adults only utilize the informal financial services sector, and 22% of adults were completely excluded. That should be the target for all of us. Access and utilization is also skewed towards the urban versus rural. And yet in Africa, we know that rural populations are the majority. Now, this is how Postbank has tried to working in collaboration with the Post Office and also other development partners, that in 2012, we observed that a lot of the young population traveling abroad, call it Middle East, United States, Europe, and other parts of the world, were having most of their money when they send to their unscrupulous relatives. Somebody sends money. I'm sure those from Africa know this. This is a common story. That somebody keeps sending you photographs abroad that I'm developing for your project, when actually they're photographing the neighbors' what? Building. So many people come home and there's nothing on the ground. So what do we do? As a bank, we went down and developed a product called Diaspora Classic Account. Now, this is an account which helps the people working abroad to own savings accounts back home. I head a department which is directly in charge of this. But I'm proud to share that in Uganda, we were the first to do this kind of product. Today, other players have joined it. And the way we structured it was to make it attractive to them, that when they send their money, there are no charges. We try to minimize a lot of tariffs on this money, hard-earned money. Remember, these are not very high earners. These are people doing odd jobs with small contracts of annual basis, renewable after a year. Now she sends their money home and you find there's nothing. So this account, later on we discovered that, but even if you have this account, if you don't again make it possible for them, the infrastructure, the platform upon which they can remit their money home, then you have solved only half of the problem. So we come up and start looking for partners. By the time IFAD comes on board, they found us grappling with this issue. And this is an area which made our proposal a winning one. Because we already had one side of the coin, but the other side was now, how do you enable even the recipients of the money, some of it which comes in the account, some of it which is paid out over the counter. So we now developed the products which followed, like in 2015, partnering with the Post Office to ease access for the unbanked, where there are no banks, but where post offices exist. Then we launched the project in 2018, and today as we speak, there is already behavioral change amongst the people receiving remittances. That someone in a rural part of the country now opens an account that they don't have to say, I must travel to go and pick my money, but they can now use technology to access it via the post office nearest to them, but also they can spend it at ease. So we see that post offices are evenly spread in rural and peri-urban areas, making it easy for this to succeed. So the Posta PBU IFAD Finance Partnership rides on a well-established post-bank diaspora classic account targeting Ugandan migrants and use of well-spread infrastructure, which reduces costs. The project provides financial literacy, which empowers 70% of the unbanked population to save. Now, this account, a diaspora account, as I was mentioning, is about the Ugandans living abroad. It enables them to operate the account from wherever they are, banking without necessarily having to be in the banking hall. They control their money back home, and this kicks out the cheats, like I shared earlier. You can also transfer funds from your diaspora account to another bank account within the same bank or even with another bank. You can pay local bills like national water, school fees, and other services. You can also buy airtime. And then you can send money to a non-account holder through mobile money. And then pay for your insurance premiums, and so on and so forth. So this is a product which I've already described. I may not go through the entire list of the features. So the question is, how can one deposit money on their diaspora account? Like I shared, over the years, we have been working with the organization MoneyGram, Western Union, and so on and so forth. But the one which has just come on board, which is really giving us a solution, is TransFast. I think TransFast are in this room. We have just signed with them, and for them, they are bringing, first of all, a competitive price structure, but also a solution, especially bank to bank. That is what has been missing. Western Union, I'm told, it has also started the same, but before, we are their agents, but they didn't have this solution at first. The others are World Remit, Sendwave, and Trusted Forex Bureaus. Is it moving? Sorry. Now, of course, that slide was just showing, especially our customers abroad, how they can open, the different ways they can use to open an account. So that was, in a nutshell, what I wanted to share. And the whole point here is that as we do remittances, we cannot run away from cash completely in Africa because there's a case for financial inclusion. And financial inclusion, much as you can save money on the phone, you need a bank account for you to be able to be assured of the time, sufficient time for you to plan for your funds. So with this, we think this kind of approach will help solve the problem. We invite all of you to partner with, especially post offices, because they have infrastructure, historically built, but this infrastructure, postal services are no longer important, but this space of remittances, we could ride on it like we are doing in Uganda. And of course, also the other advantage is that in East Africa, we have agency banking, where now the central bank has licensed us to start working with merchants to do banking. And remittances can also pass through these agents. Postbank alone, we have up to 200 agents across the country, on top of having the 50 brick and mortar branches, as well as 15 mobile banking vehicles, like the example I showed. So you can see with that outreach, you are touching, first of all, the saving population is about we closed the year with about 1.2 million customers. Now, all these are potential recipients of remittances. So, collaborating with such a structure, especially targeting the mass market like we do, there is a lot to benefit from this kind of partnership. Thank you very much for listening.